Today we're speaking with Dr. Rod King, who is the author of Business Model Canvas, a good tool with bad instructions. And we're going to talk about supply chain design. And the title of the interview is Supply Chain Design from the Business Model Canvas to the Supply Chain Canvas. So Dr. Rod, can you tell us what your book is about?
Well, my book focuses on the business model canvas since it's the most popular tool used for improving business models. But the use of the business model canvas is fraught with difficulties, and I have identified 12 handicaps which result in a lot of waste when using this business model canvas. So my book highlights the 12 handicaps of the business model canvas and as well as proposes ways to eliminate those handicaps so that people can design, analyze, and manage business models more effectively as well as more efficiently.
Is this book also relevant to supply chain professionals and executives?
Yes, it is quite relevant because the next stage after business model design is supply chain design. But in the business model canvas, a non-linear structure of the supply chain is presented, and that non-linear format of the business model canvas is not directly related to the supply chain. So supply chain designers, planners, managers do not think that the business model canvas is directly relevant to their own work. But in presenting aspects of the business model canvas as a supply chain canvas, which uses a linear format, as well as the four main stakeholders in supply chain: suppliers, producers, customers, and consumers. Professionals in the supply chain industry can directly apply principles of the business model canvas as well as of the classic supply chain.
Talk in a little bit more detail about the deficiencies that are inherent in the business model canvas.
Well, for a start, the format of the business model canvas is non-linear. It focuses on 9 blocks, and although these are inherently arranged in the format of a supply chain, this is not obvious to many people. Instead of starting with suppliers, it starts on the left-hand side with key partners. And these key partners are supposed to include suppliers, but suppliers do not appear among the topics. So it's difficult for supply chain designers to see how the business model canvas directly relates to the supply chain. In talking about the supply chain canvas, the supply chain canvas focuses on how information, goods, products flow between value creators on the left-hand side, and these include suppliers, how they provide products, services, and information to value recipients on the right-hand side, whom can also be called customers. So in the classic supply chain, goods, information, etc. flow from suppliers to customers. But I use a more general format in the supply chain canvas, in that information and goods flow from value creators to value recipients. And the importance of using the category of value creators is that when compared to the business model canvas, you can lump partners, suppliers, and the enterprise. They can all be aggregated as value creators. So they become one node of your supply chain. And then on the right-hand side of the business model canvas, customer segments, channels, and customer relationships can all be grouped under value recipients. So interpreting the business model canvas in terms of a supply chain canvas means that the value proposition is between the value creators on the left-hand side and the value recipients on the right-hand side. And one idea which is brought to the supply chain canvas from the business model canvas is the value which is created. So between every supplier and every customer, value is exchanged and generated in the form of cost and revenue. The other aspect or handicap of the business model canvas is that it is designed for one type of customer segment. It is actually optimized for one type of customer segment. And then when you have multiple customer segments, as in supply chain networks, those are very difficult to model using the business model canvas. So those are two deficiencies with respect to the supply chain canvas, which the business model canvas has.
Can you talk about how this, for your tool, how can it be better visually integrated with other business tools? Is there a difference?
In fact, there are two tools which can be integrated, as far as I have seen, with all business tools. The business model canvas in the form of the 9 building blocks is very difficult to integrate with other tools. But when you consider the business model canvas in terms of value creators, value proposition, value recipients, and value in terms of cost and revenue, those 4 or 5 aspects can be related to any other business tool, because it takes a systems perspective. And when those 4 or 5 variables are expressed in a linear form, as in a supply chain, you can relate it to every tool. Because the underlying assumption is that every tool or product or service that is delivered through a supply chain. So virtually any tool can be related easily to the supply chain canvas. And in the book that I wrote, on the front page, there is an illustration which I call the poker canvas. So it's an abstract form of the business model canvas, and using the poker canvas, you can map any business tool to that poker canvas, which is on the front cover of my book.
And how can you talk a little bit more about how your book and the model can be used by supply chain executives or entrepreneurs that are dealing with supply chains?
Well, there would have to be a transition from thinking about a business model canvas to what I call a business model strip in the book, STRIP. So the business model strip is the supply chain in its simplest form. So while supply chain professionals may have difficulties in using the non-linear form of the business model canvas, the business model strip is is a simpler version of the business model canvas, and in its linear form, it can be used as a supply chain, except that unlike in a classic supply chain, the business model strip indicates exchange between the value creator or supplier and the value recipient or or customer. So that's the difference. So the business model strip can be used like in a supply chain. That's one great advantage of my book, because the business model strip builds a bridge between the business model canvas and the classic supply chain.
And thank you, Rod, for sharing today.
Yeah. Thank you too.